My name is Simba David EY, a student for Africa Leadership University. I'm here to profile Mr. David Marange. He's a partner for Ernst & Young, one of the leading firms in Zimbabwe, and part of the global top 4 firms in the world. I've worked with him since 2006. And he's been my mentor. He's been provided guidance to me. I've worked with him directly on specific assignments, and I've looked at every other angle that I can, and I've said, no, this man is the man that have taught me virtuous values. I've seen him living the experience. I've seen him doing the little things that everyone would forego for the sake of maybe expedience or speed or convenience. But looking at his life and looking at how he lives, I think we need to get more from him. I have so many reference points that I will also direct him in the discussion. Welcome, Mr. Marange.
Thank you, Mr. Mambanda.
Thank you. I think there are 5 pillars that I have looked at and that we want to focus on our discussion today. The first one is making ethical decisions. Looking at the nature of your job, it requires, but there are always disadvantages or things that stay in your way. Could you shed more light into how you live this and how you manage to do this on your daily basis?
No, thank you. I think the first thing is as you've alluded to, the environment is one which requires one to live ethically. I'll give you a little bit of a background. After my articles, I left the profession and went to work in industry and commerce. And I spent 4 years there. What drove me back to the profession was I noted that for you to progress in the 2 companies that I was involved with, one a listed company, the other one an international company, you had to compromise on your ethics, something that I was not prepared to do. And I realized if I was to be the person that I am striving to be, one who lives by ethical standards, I had to come to an environment that would respect and encourage such living. So I think living ethically, it's part of how I was brought up in a Christian family. My father in particular always used to say to me, never compromise on your integrity. And it's a lesson that I've carried with me throughout. I've had the opportunity from junior school, high school, of being in positions of responsibility. And knowing that someone is relying on me to live ethically and make the right decisions, I take that responsibility very seriously. So it's something that has developed over time. And to this day, for me, I might lose everything else, but I must never lose my integrity. And within the firm, my career has also gravitated to those areas where that strength of mine is an asset. So as the cluster professional practice director, it's one of the things that I need to ensure that our decisions are made ethically and professionally. So it's really ensuring that those support mechanisms which promote the men I want to be are in place. I place myself in spaces where I'm not compromised. I will actively avoid certain committees and certain fora where I think I might compromise, my ethical standing.
Yeah. How do you manage to win in a situation where, like smaller things like police bribes that many of us are getting accustomed to doing the easy way out?
I think it's a number of factors over the years that you pick up. The first is someone is always watching you. Okay. So you may think no one knows me, no one is watching, but someone is watching you, and those little actions are going to have an impact on them. So you have a responsibility to do the right thing. Linked to that, from my religious background, I know God is watching me. And the one thing that I always say is unfair is that in God's eyes, there is no small sin and big sin. Sin is sin. So I would hate one day to be put in the same place with a murderer because I paid a $5 fine. You know? So just avoid it. You know?
All right, now let's move to focusing on excellency. I know EY is a firm of excellency, and I'm sure you're also a leader in PPG. We used to call it PPG. I'm not
That's
sure.
still the name, Professional Practice Group.
Group, yes, and it's all about excellency.
Yes.
Tell me the background of how you became to be appointed.
So it doesn't come overnight. The background, I think, goes back to junior school, our first track. In grade 7, I was in the top stream, and I had a particularly tough teacher. And one lesson she taught me was, you live by your own standards. How did she do this? We used to get house points. And I would observe that my friends in a test would get maybe 80%, 75%. They get 5 house points. I would get 90%, 95%, and I get 1 house point. And when I asked her, Mrs. Gent, this does not look fair, she said to me, David, if you can get 90%, you can get 100%. You were negligent. Whereas for these ones, they worked very hard to get to 80%. So from that early age, I then learned that I don't go by the standards of others, but the standard is, what can I do? Have I done my best? It takes hard work. So when I joined the firm, it was at the start of hyperinflation. And I simply said to myself, this is an opportunity, it's new ground for everyone. I will be the expert in the firm. So I researched, I worked hard on IAS 29. I was part of the ICAS committee that actually came up with a solution globally for hyperinflation. And I think through that, I got noticed. That's how I got promoted into partnership. And when the then head of technical passed on in a tragic car accident, I was like the immediate, obvious choice to replace her because of what I had shown on hyperinflation. And yes, I suppose as an associate director, as a manager, in reviewing the audit files, I was said to be one of the people who raised the most queries. I was very technical.
Let's talk about raising the most queries, because I'm one of the victims. So among the many hats that you carry, how do you glide between showing empathy and concern for others? I understand you're a partner, you are a family man, at church you have responsibilities, you've got responsibilities here at work which are extra to a normal partner, because you look after Zambia, you look after Malawi, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, one of the functions,
One
yes.
of the functions, yes. And then you also a chief. I would like to call you a chief. Can you just shed more light into how you are involved with your village as the village headman?
Okay, so I did not spend much time in the village growing up. My father was the village head, but when it came to my turn to be the village head, because I was now the eldest surviving male, I took it as an opportunity to say, they've got something I can learn from. I've got something that they can learn from. And what I brought to that union was my professional training, my contacts that I have in the city, the corporate contacts. What they brought, and they're humbling me every time I meet with them, is actually the passion to do the best for themselves. But I realize all they need and all they needed was the leadership. So all the projects we are doing didn't actually come from me. The tree planting, the community hall, the lavatory toilet facilities, it came from the floor. And we'll then say, okay, what do we need? What can you as the villagers here provide? We set timelines, we set guiding principles to say those who do not comply, what do we do with them? Because in any grouping, you'll have some who work with others, some who don't. And my job really was to encourage and to lead by action. Sure that I'm not asking them to do what I'm not prepared to do as a leader. And secondly, where it came to financial requirements, I took that burden upon myself to say, okay, I've got the corporate contacts. If you can demonstrate that you can do what's within your means, I will use that as a leverage to then get the financial backing for where we need monetary assistance. And that is how we have been working. But a lot of what we are doing is coming from the people themselves. They know what they want, they know what they need. It's just a leader who is needed to say, now let's focus on this for this year and whip everyone in line, encourage everyone to play their part.
Okay. So what, as a leader, what we can learn here is you have provided that platform where people can exercise their thinking capacity on how to develop themselves.
Yes, I have actually challenged them. In my acceptance speech, I told them I was not going to drive from Harare to the village to preside over petty cases. I was accepting on the basis that I'll drive from Harare to the village to bring development to the area. I've got a committee I've appointed who will deal with the admin issues. They are very capable, they know the traditions. I will come in as I've done before, where I believe they are not making the right ethical decisions, they are not making fair decisions, I will overrule them. And now, because they know that I don't care whether it's my relative who is in the wrong, thus correct standards must be applied consistently. They're doing a good job. And I'm focusing on the area of development.
Okay, no, that's insightful. In terms of what would you consider to be the developments that have happened ever since you took over?
We established 3 community woodlots. We hold a tree planting day every year. We've engaged with partners, Friends for the Environment, led by Nyaradzo. And our gum tree projects are doing very well. Within the homesteads, my wife took it upon herself to plant seedlings for the community, and each household got an average of between 3 and 5 seedlings from us for fruit trees. We have at our meeting station where we meet for our meetings, when we started there were no toilet facilities, and we said, oh, this is not hygienic. We've established very good hygienic facilities there now. We've established a scholarship fund. So the government has got an allowance that it gives the village head monthly out of government funding. And my wife said to me, you know what, we've been surviving without this amount up to now. We can survive without it. Why don't we put it aside for a scholarship fund to benefit the local children? So we don't discriminate on sex, we don't discriminate on age. And I'm happy to say our first recipient is now at university in South Africa. I think that the last two things, because we are working with Nyaradzo, who offer funeral cover, we managed to get a village-wide rate. And in partnership with them, what we do is the village makes sure people who are signed up for the cover pay on time to a contact person, who will then contact the Nyaradzo agent to make one trip and collect for the entire villages who are signed up. So we've removed the admin burden from Nyaradzo. In return, we've got a lower rate. So by doing that, we are supporting people who have supported us, and our people are also getting decent burials now.
No, that's
Lastly, it's the community hall, which is our biggest project so far. All the labor for this project, the river sand, the pit sand, the bricks, the quarry stones, the three-quarter stones, they came direct from the villagers. They are manual effort. We've come in getting the funding for cement and the steelworks. Government then came up with the Zimunya Marange Trust, where they allocated 5 million to the areas of Zimunya and Marange, where my village is. And villages within this area were asked to nominate projects to benefit. And I'm happy to say we were nominated in our cluster to be the recipient. So starting in June, government will be coming in to help us now to roof the hall. At which point, come rain, come hot weather, we've got somewhere for our children to have their crash lessons. We've got somewhere to hold the workshops for the youths. We've got somewhere to hold our meetings, have our weddings. And that was the vision.
That's insightful. Thank you for that. Then I'm sure we also have covered developing others as we were talking. Just an example of an employee or someone we have worked with or someone we have mentored, who is not me, of course, that you can take us through how you have done it and where they are now, and you can rightfully say, I have had an input in that person's life and I'm proud of my engagement with the person.
There's one young man, I shall not mention his name because I don't have permission, but he approached me. I worked for EY, and he said he wanted me to be his mentor, to which I agreed. At that point, he was very despondent because he had failed his exams 3 times. And he was saying, maybe this is not the right profession for me, maybe I should be leaving, where is my career going? I shared with him my life story. And my life story is from a straight A student. When it came to the qualifying exams, I failed 4 times. I passed on my last eligible attempt, the 5th attempt. Despite that, I then came on to become the head of technical in a big 4 firm. And that was testimony for him to say, you failed 3 times, it's not the end, look where I am. He went on to write his exams and eventually passed. He's now somewhere in the Cayman Islands doing very well. And what he said to me was, I was ready to give up. Okay. But by sharing my life story with him and the subsequent conversations we had as mentor-mentee, it helped him to focus and ensure that he passed his exams. And now he's doing very well, outside the borders of Zimbabwe. Okay. You probably know who that person is already.
I'm running names. Thank you very much. I'm also a testimony to that. Having went through your hands, and I know the quality of advice that you give, the quality of work that you encourage and the quality of life that you try to impart on us. And we have seen and watched you as well, and we are inspired every day, each and every day of our lives.
Thank you.
Yeah. The last one is, how do you manage to stay resilient as a partner in an organization where you are auditing so many different and diverse groups of people, some with short tempers, some with who want to cut corners, some want to force whatever they want on you. How do you manage to continue to stay resilient?
Yeah. I think it's about understanding that people are people, and by our nature, we are not perfect. And so, whenever someone is doing something contrary to what you'd have expected, I always say, you know what, somewhere, somehow, I'm also irritating someone else. And if I allow myself not to be in control of the situation, then I'm no better than the other person. That's the first thing. The second thing is to recognize that this is a job. Okay, we will come out of the office, go home, and probably our wives are friends, or realize that we're going to the same church. Now, if we have a bad feast off in the boardroom, how are we going to relate outside? So in my mind, it's very clear that work is work. If in terms of work and professional standards I have to censure you, I will. That is work. But when we are on the cricket field, I'll embrace you. We are on the cricket field as teammates. I separate issues very clearly in my mind.
All right. Have you encountered a situation where certain clients wants to push you in a corner to agree to certain things? Not necessarily the fact that they are of integrity or not, but maybe let's say it's an audit fee, and they just want to push you in a corner, and you want to make your point that I'm not accepting.
I have, and I'll admit there is one time that I did lose my cool, but what I realized was I could not shout back at the client. So what I did was I switched off the phone. And once I had calmed down after a couple of hours, I called him back. I said, sorry, I had to switch off the phone because I would not have been able to take back my words. He was upset that I'd cut the phone on him, but at least the damage was limited to that. Because the things I would have said would have damaged the relationship much more. Yes. So I think it's about staying true to your principles and accepting if I have to lose a client, but because I'm doing the right thing, I'm prepared to accept that. And that's a message I've given to my team to say, let's price correctly. If we lose having priced correctly, that's not a problem. Because clients soon realize that if you pay peanuts, you also get monkey business. They'll come back.
All right, thank you very much. Maybe just to wrap it up, how do you manage to balance all this together? Is there any instances where one aspect of your life feels let down because another one is now taking prominence? I'm talking about you are here. You've got others that you guide who are outside here as well. You've got your family, you've got your community, you've got your church and every other friends, the network, everyone. How do you balance all those and managing to still remain David Marange, whom we know?
I think it's about communicating and being open and sharing what you are doing. So my wife knows all my other activities, my family knows. She knows when it's busy for me and when it is not. in the same breath, whether it's United Theological College, where I'm the treasurer, whether it's the church, they know what I'm doing with all the other groupings. So when we are setting board meetings at UTC, they'll ask me, when are you traveling? Do you have an event in Mutare? And because they know I'm involved, they will accommodate me. When the people are calling for a meeting in the village, they know I've got other aspects of my life, and they'll ask what works best. So by being open with everyone on what I'm doing, I then get the support. And it's not just about letting them know. So when I go to UTC, I'll take the wife so that she can see that's where I'm spending my time, what am I doing, and she becomes a supporter and a fellow colleague in those endeavors. If there's an activity at church, we are together or wherever. So it's really about being open and sharing the whole of me with everyone.
Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Marange.